File handling. File handling is an important part of programming which allows us to create, read, update, and delete files. These files ranges from Excel file, CSV file, JSON file, Word documents. All these are all files. Do you understand? They are all files. So how can you now read the content of a file with your programming language? It's what we call file handling. Is that understood? Just like you have a Microsoft Excel document in your computer system. Can you read what you have there? Can you read what you have in your Microsoft Excel? How? You click on it, double click to what? To open, right? Once it's open, then you can read. Just like you can open your document to read, you can also write a code to open that same document to read from that document. Is that understood? Whether your CSV file, whether Excel file, whether text file, even images. You can also read images as well. Just like the way you double click on your image and you see yourself, isn't it? You can also ask your programming language to also look at your image for you. And don't forget, images are saved in what? In binary formats, in ones and zeros. So for this part of this course, we will only be working with text file. Handle data in Python, we use the open built-in function to work with your file. Now, the syntax is written as open file name, comma, mode. That is how the syntax is written. Open file name, mode. Where the mode is the mode you want to work on the file. Whether you want to read. So R is for read. That is, you want to read from it only. A is for append. You want to add a value to that text file. That is append. When you use you also use append in list, isn't it? So when you append, what does that do? Does it append to the end or to the first? To the end of the file, isn't it? So this also append a value to the end of your what? Of your file. W is write. We also want to write to a file. The difference between append and write: append will add to a file, while write will overwrite. We delete everything from that file and write the new one. That is the difference. Both are writing to a file, but append will only write to the end. That means if you have a lot of things in your text file, it will add to the end. But write, if you have a lot of things, it cleans everything and what? Do you understand? So what it's actually doing is it's recreating the file. That's what it's doing. It's recreating the file and writing a new thing. So everything you have initially what will be gone. Is that understood? And also we also have create text binary. Binary is used to read images. Now, by default, if you don't write any mode, the mode is read by default if nothing is written. Is that understood? The mode is read by default. Now, if a file does not exist on your computer system, can you read from it?
No, because it doesn't exist.
So that is the reason why we need to use exception. In case you want to read from a file that does not exist. So, when you are opening a file, that open function is an object. Is an object that returns something. No, did I say return something? Is an object. So you need an object handler to handle that object. I will teach you guys object and classes more, maybe sometimes to this time. Don't worry if you don't understand what object and classes is. But open is an object. Actually, everything in Python is an object, but this is an object. So we need an object handler to handle it, just like we need a variable. Do you understand? So we need a variable to handle the file. Is that understood? To handle the file, So that means I need to write maybe file. This file is not a keyword, it's just a variable. Is that understood? I can also write variable. But the reason I'm writing file because I'm trying to create my variable in context of the problem I'm solving. Is that understood? I can write file is equal to open. Okay, so you're trying to open the file name. Do you understand? So let me assume the file name is fad.txt. Okay, So if I don't write anything, what is the mode? It's the read mode. Is that understood? Then another function you can use when you open with a read mode is to read from a file. Is that understood? And the read function is used. Is that understood? There's a read function to read from a file. And when you are reading from a file, it returns the text that has been read, which is a string. Is that understood? So that string should be in what? Should be saved to a variable. So anything you read from a file is what? Is a string. Anything you write to a file is a string. Just like you have input and output is a string, your file is also input and output. That will be file dot read. Like I said, that file is not a variable, it's an handler that is handling what? The file operation. So anything you want to do with the file operation, it must be that handler dot the operation. That handler dot the operation. Just like we have file dot read. So the file means the file dot text have been opened and handled by what? By file. Is that understood? So anytime you want to work on that file, just call the variable that is handling that object. Is that understood? Now, if I run this code, now look at this. There's a problem. Why?
There is no such file.
No such file. So that means if I have many codes after this, all the code will not run, isn't it? But is this like our problem? Is this a problem? It's not really a problem. It's just that the file does not exist. Probably the file does not exist on my computer. It may exist on another person's computer. Is that understood? So that is the reason why I need to use try to open. And if it does not open, it throws an exception that does not affect my code from running. If I have the file on my computer, it will run on my computer, but it may not run on your own computer because you may not have the file on your own computer. Do you understand? So that is the reason why it's advisable to always use what? Try and exception in this case. And that was why I taught you this in the last class. So try to open, then if there's an exception, you throw the exception as ERR. Then you print the message. Sorry, ERR. Okay. So if you run this now, the file does not exist, but it's what? It's just right. It does not affect your code, does not bring an error. It continues to run. So let's create a file and make sure it exists. And how can you read from a file? So let's create a file now. Now I have created this file, file.txt. I want to read from this file. There are two ways to do this. Number one, you copy the file path. You copy the file path. So let me copy the file path. You right click and click or copy as path. Can you see that? You click on that. Then you go back to your code. So instead of this file name, file.txt, you paste. You remove the double quote, but there's going to be a problem. All the forward slash, you replace it with a backslash. Okay. So backslash. No, all the backslash you replace with what? With a forward slash. Okay. Okay. Then let's try and read this. Any error?
No.
That means it has read from that file. Is that understood? Now, why do I need to copy the file path? Why don't I just write file.txt? Let me run this. It's still giving an error. It does not exist. I will tell you the reason. Let's go to the second method. This is the first method. The first method is what? Copy the file path. Is that understood? The second method is to copy this file in the folder of your Python file, in the same folder of your Python file. Open a new folder. Are you following me? So let's call it file handling folder. Then copy your Python code and your text file both in that folder. Open it and be sure that it is in the folder. Do you understand? Are you all following me? After you've done that, then open your Visual Studio Code. Open the Visual Studio Code. So when you open the Visual Studio Code, go to the File Explorer. Can you see? Can you see the Explorer? Then click on Open Folder. Open Folder. Then go to the desktop. What is the name of the file?
File handling.
File Handling. Click on File Handling and click Select Folder. Do you want to save changes? This. Whether you save on those save, you choose one. Then everything closes. Then this is your Python file. This is your text file. So click on it. It brings out your Python file. So can you see that the folder has been opened in the IDE with your Python file? So now that the folder has been opened, then you can use file.txt instead of the folder, instead of the file path rather. So if you use file.txt and you run this file, it will not give an error. Can you see? It will not give an error. So if you don't open the folder here, it will give an error. So there are two ways. Either you copy the file path and change the backslash to, or you what? You open the folder in your IDE and just use the file name. Either of the two, use any method that you are comfortable with. Is that understood? Is that understood, everyone? Good. But in Cambridge, you are going to have a problem. If you write this in Cambridge, is it running fine? Is there any problem? No, but there is a problem. You did not close the file. You will lose 1 mark. The question will never ask you to close the file. You should know you are supposed to close the file. These are the files, these are the data in this file, isn't it? So now we have something to read from, isn't it? Good. Now that we've done that, so let's go back to the code. Like I told you, we must always what? Close. So if you try to open and you read, the next thing is to close. You must close. So now we've read the word, right? So after reading, then out of the function, we can try to print what has been read. So we can print word. Is that understood? Try to print what has been read. So let's run this code now. Can you see? Is it printed? Is it printed the exact way I wrote it in the file? Yes, it's printed the exact way it is written in the file. Is this understood, everyone? After this word has been printed, can we convert? Do you know that this word is not a string, right? It's not a string. It's a string, right? I can just say list is equal to empty list. Then I write list is equal to word dot what?
Split.
Dot split.
Slash
How am I splitting?
slash n.
I'm splitting from what? From the enter, because it is not separated by space. Do you know there is a new character in each of the what? In each of the lines of, in each line, isn't it? Then I will split with what? With a slash n. Is this slash n?
Yes.
Good. Then I can now what? I can print the what? The list. Then if I run this code again, what do I get? Then it print the string and what? And the list. Now we are not going back to what we have learned initially, right? So the only thing we need to do is to know how to read from a file. Then we'll do what we used to do. In some cases in the exam, you might forget to close your file. So with this way, you don't have to close. When you use the with function, you don't have to close your file. So this is what I will encourage you guys to use. So instead of writing file is equal to open file name mode, instead write with open file name mode as file. Is that understood? So with this, you don't need to close the file. Apart from the read function, there are also functions you can work with while reading from a file. You also have the read number. As you want to read a certain number of lines. Is that understood? So for example, if I have written word is equal to read 2, that means I only want to read how many lines? 2. So if I run this, then I have, sorry, not 2 lines, 2 characters. Is that understood? Just 2 characters. So it have to do with number of characters you want to read. So if I want to read 10 characters, I just type in 10 and run it. That is 10 characters. Is that understood?
But now.
Good. Now, read line. This read line, we read only the first line. Do you understand? So let's take, for example, file dot read line. Read line. Okay. So with read line, you run this code, it gives you apple. How many lines is it reading? The first. But how many things do you have in the first line? Two things. The text and the what? And the enter, the new line character. Is that understood? So that was why you see this. That is written in that is read in that one line. Do you understand? Okay, good. What if you have read lines? Read lines. Okay. For read lines, this returns. So let me just print word only. Don't let me convert it to an array. Just print word only. Is that understood? So we can see what is read only. So this reads it as a list. So read lines returns a list. So instead of using dot split, you can just write read lines. But there is a problem. It reads what?
It takes the character of the
It takes the special character with it. Is that understood? The next one, we also have read split lines. Okay, so that will be dot read and dot split lines. Okay, good. Lines. Have I done this? No. So when you run this, what happens? So do you need to use split again if you want? You can also use the split lines, isn't it? The split lines or with dot split slash n. So there are several ways. Use the one that you are what? Comfortable with. Is that understood? So good. So to write, you have to open what? In the mode to write. Is that understood? The default mode is read, isn't it? So let's open in the mode to write. Let's start with append first, isn't it? What would append do? Add to the end. So let me write what is equal to Fad is a good boy. So that is what I want to write. Then I write it as file dot write. Then wait. Can you see?
You have to use the file handler.
Of course, anytime you want to work with that file, you have to use that object handler. It's not necessary it must be file. Is that understood? And it's just a variable. So this will write to fad. Print word. What is it printing?
Word.
Word. So that is not what is printed. Can you see? Did it add it? Did it add it? So it's appended fad is a good boy to the end, isn't it? But it's not appended to the next line, just the end. Why do you think that is happening?
Because append always appends to the last character.
To the last character. So if I want to append to a new line, what am I supposed to do? Slash n, isn't it? So if I have written this, maybe slash n, that means it will type in enter before writing what? Fad is a good boy, isn't it? Then if you want this code, so let's go back. Can you see?
So it keeps adding on to the.
It keeps adding. Is that understood? Now let me now use write in the write mode. In the write mode. Do you understand? In the write mode, let's run our code. What happens? It should clear everything and write what? File is a good boy. Is this understood, everyone? So I've taught you how to read, how to write, and how to append. So let's try to append to a file that does not exist. So let me call it asset. Is it SS or 1S? Okay, asset.text. Does it exist on my computer? No. But I'm trying to write what? File is a good boy to this file. So let's run it. Any error? No error. So, no error. The file does not exist. So it will create the file. Before now what? Writing. That's what I told you guys, isn't it? Can you see asset.text is now here? Do you understand? If you go to the folder in my desktop, you should see it there. File handling. asset.txt is down there. Is that understood? So that is how to create a file. Any question? So with this, I've been able to teach you file handling, how to read, how to write. There are so many functions with file handling as well, but I only covered the most important thing that we need for this curriculum. So if you want to learn more, go to Python documentation to learn more about functions. You can also use it with file, and you can also delete a file. Okay, you can do a lot with file handling. After reading from a file, you can use for loop to access each element in the file, isn't it? You can even use for loop to write some elements back to the what? To the file. You can use if loop to check if something exists in that file, isn't it? Good.